Yo, what's cracking everyone? Ericship 111 here. So when it comes to sim racing, PC players have lived in a world of abundance, a complete buffet of choices from iRacing to Assetto Corsa to Automobilista, and yes, even Rennsport, each one offering a slightly different flavor of realism, physics, and community, but for console players, that experience has always felt just out of reach. You see, when Rennsport first launched its beta on PC, it promised something bold: to redefine the world of digital motorsports, deliver an uncompromising racing experience powered by Unreal Engine 5 with breathtaking visuals, laser-scanned precision, and a modern vision of online competition. But there was one thing missing: a console version. Now, thanks to publishers over at Nacon, Rennsport will now stand as one of the very few PC-born sim racers making the leap over to console, which brings us to one question every Xbox and PlayStation racer is asking right now: can Rennsport truly deliver PC-level simulation over on console without compromise, without shortcuts, while still appealing to the plug-and-play audience that defines console gamers? Because if it can, we might be witnessing the catalyst for a new era in console sim racing, one that could finally convince other simulations like Le Mans Ultimate and Assetto Corsa Evo to never overlook at consoles as an afterthought again. So let's talk about Rennsports on console, starting with visuals first. By the way, all of the footage you see in today's video were all captured on the PS5 Pro, but I gotta be honest, given that this game was built using Unreal Engine 5, it just doesn't look all that appealing. I know the phrase "this looks like a mobile game" gets thrown around way too often these days, usually as pure rage bait, but in Rennsport's case, there's no real other way of describing it. Also, every track I've tested had noticeable texture pop-ins, shadows that flicker or fade in or out during mid-corner, and overall the image quality feels a little soft. It's got that slight hazy look to it, kinda like a layer of blur over everything. Very similar to how Forza Motorsport launched, where nothing ever looked truly crisp. Now, don't get me wrong, the game has its moments, and when the conditions line up just right, it can look great. But for a title that's running on Unreal Engine 5, I expected a level of visual fidelity that would give titles like Gran Turismo 7 or even Forza Motorsport a run for its money. As now entering the console market, these are the titles Rennsport will be compared to the moment it launches on PlayStation and Xbox, and unfortunately, right now, visually at least, it doesn't quite reach that bar. With that said though, there is one area where Rennsport genuinely surprised me, and that is in its car damage modeling. You see, a lot of modern sims avoid showing proper damage, but Rennsport actually goes all in. When you hit a barrier or trade paint with another car, you'll see a car body panel bend, bumpers crack, or even bits of carbon fiber flying across the track. No matter which car you choose, every vehicle has its own unique crash model that goes beyond anything Forza Motorsport or Gran Turismo has done. Now granted, at times the damage doesn't look the most realistic, but if you've smashed your car that badly in a sim racing title, perhaps you are in the wrong genre of racing games. Of course, damage also affects the car mechanically, mainly aero and suspension, where you can see exactly how healthy they are in your multi-function display. And although Rennsport might not be the prettiest racing game on console right now, in terms of physical authenticity, this is where this sim does earn some major props. Now we move on to the car physics and handling model. Because I was on the PlayStation 5, I decided to play Rennsport all with the standard PlayStation controller to see whether or not this sim racer can provide a plug and play console experience, as the last time I did this was with the original Assetto Corsa, and my goodness, that was a horrendous experience. Now with Rennsport, after a bit of tinkering with the controller settings, which took me around 45 minutes to fine tune, as the game does not offer a restore to default setting, as well as whenever you want to check how your new settings have changed. You can't do it fluently because the left thumbstick is also the same input to move your values from left to right. So these are my exact controller settings on Rennsport right now, and I feel like I've been able to drive and control the different characteristics of each vehicle pretty well. Keep in mind though, there are certain things about racing on a controller that could potentially be deemed as a drawback. First is if your car is losing traction due to lift-off oversteer, it's almost impossible to save your car from losing control. I found this most noticeable in the Praga R1 and the BMW M2 CS Racing. At first, I thought my controller settings were messed up again, but ultimately I had to adjust my driving style to be much more smoother with the throttle, and eventually those cars I struggled with both became relatively easy to drive. However, because of this, I did feel like I wasn't able to push myself to the absolute limit. I was always only around 90 to 95% for my races, which is fine for single player, but for multiplayer, if you want to be in the top split, perhaps there is a glass ceiling for controller players, or maybe I'm just not that good. But overall, for someone like myself who doesn't really have any real world racing experience to compare these cars to, as well as being on a controller, I am having a blast, and yes, every car feels different, which is the most important. So, which cars will be available in Rennsport at launch then? Well, there will be a total of 19 cars, ranging from GT3 machines to Le Mans hybrids, down to GT4 cars, Cup cars, and even TCRs. There's a decent variety of racing vehicles to get behind the wheel of. However, 19 cars for a console racer feels pretty small, and honestly, it is. For those looking for a more expansive sim racing experience, Rennsport may feel a little underwhelming at first. On top of that, not all of these cars are available if you only purchase the standard edition. For example, this Porsche 911 GT3R Rennsport is locked behind the deluxe edition, and I'm not 100% sure if this Ford Mustang GT3 is also exclusive to pre-orders of any edition. So if you buy the standard version of Rennsport after November 13th, whether it's on Xbox or PS5, you only have 17 cars available to drive. That said, the developers have already revealed that 2 DLC packs are coming shortly after launch. Honestly, a pretty ballsy decision considering the amount they're charging for the modest base content, but here's what's been planned. The first DLC will feature 3 endurance classics, the Porsche 911 GT1, the Mercedes-Benz CLK LM, and the Porsche 956, and it's expected to release towards the end of 2025. This pack will also include an additional track which I'll cover shortly, and the second DLC focuses on iconic DTM cars from the 80s and 90s, including Alfa Romeo, Mercedes, and Audi, along with a classic variant of an existing track. This touring car DLC is expected to arrive in early 2026, so while the base car roster is quite small, these upcoming expansions will add some serious variety. But again, unless you have bought the deluxe edition, none of these additional content will come free. Now, let's talk about the tracks. Much like the car roster, Rennsport has a fairly modest lineup at launch. 15 tracks across 13 different environments. Many of these will feel familiar to anyone who's played Gran Turismo or Forza Motorsport. However, there are a handful of real-world tracks I was genuinely happy to see, like the Jeddah Circuit and the Goodwood Festival of Speed Sprint. On top of that, Rennsport included a few community-designed fictional tracks, such as the Founders track from Rennsports themselves, the Singapore Street Circuit designed by Legion of Racers, as well as the Swiss Complex. Personally, I love seeing tracks that are different because they force you to adapt. Learning the Jeddah circuit or navigating through the streets of Singapore adds a refreshing layer of challenge compared to more familiar layouts. That said, if you didn't purchase the deluxe edition, you won't be getting the full 24 layout of the Nürburgring Nordschleife, which I think is absolutely ludicrous. Locking arguably the most popular track behind a paid edition is a huge misstep. Hopefully that changes in the future. Now, looking ahead, the 2 upcoming DLC packs is expected to feature the Le Mans track as well as the classic Hockenheim layout, both set to release by early 2026. In terms of authenticity, Rennsport has stated that all of their official licensed tracks have been laser scanned, so they should drive and feel as they would in real life. If you're someone looking for a fun and engaging single-player experience, sadly, Rennsport doesn't quite deliver. At launch, there are only 3 options to choose from. First, there's Quick Session, which lets you customize your own race by adjusting the number of cars, stages, gameplay settings, balance of performance, and track conditions. But don't expect much of a variety here. The only weather settings available is a clear sky with a simple day-to-night cycle. Then there's time trial mode, where you pick a car and track and go all in on chasing your fastest lap time, competing against the global leaderboards. It's fine for practicing and improving consistency, but it doesn't offer much depth beyond that. And lastly, you have championship mode, which features 3 difficulty tiers: rookie, amateur, and pro. Each tier has 3 championship series, and your goal is to finish in the top 3 after all rounds have been completed. Every round includes a practice session, qualifying, and the main race. But here's where the problems start. The AI, even at higher levels, are painfully inconsistent. In Rookie, they're far too slow. If you start from pole position, they will never be a threat. And if you start from the back and attempt to overtake, the AI will often just drive straight into you, sending you off the track in a tailspin. It feels like you're racing against moving obstacles rather than intelligent competitors. And what's even more surprising is that there's no AI slider or settings to adjust your AI difficulty. For a sim racing title aiming to redefine digital motorsports, this was a huge disappointment. Now, Rennsport clearly wasn't built with single player as its main focus. It's developed mainly around competitive online racing, and during the early press build, I managed to get into what was called a custom contest set by the developers themselves, and I must say, my experience personally over on PlayStation 5 was very positive. Living in Australia, I joined the European servers, which is often the laggiest for me, but even pinging over at 200 ms, no one around me was lagging all over the place, and I don't believe I was lagging for them either. Now, there were some who I was racing with on PC who did have some issues where they would get kicked out after transitioning from the practice round over to qualifying. Some also had audio bugs on both PC and PS5 when the race started, making it impossible to drive competitively. So although I didn't have any personal issues, please be mindful that other creators weren't so fortunate, and it could happen to you. There is also quick play mode where you can find other players to do short races with, and then there's the official contest, where here you will see all of the scheduled races taking place. These races take into account your safety rating and your Rennsport rating too. Honestly, I've yet to do one official race, so I don't really know how it all works or is calculated, but it looks like there is a lot of variety here. More than what Gran Turismo has to offer, but perhaps slightly less than a Forza Motorsport. But I'm sure those who have gone out and willingly purchased Rennsport are serious racers already, looking for that true sim racing experience. Now, before I wrap things up, I do want to briefly talk about the car sounds. Look, honestly, there's nothing revolutionary here. It's what I would expect for a sim racer, for it to be competent enough so it doesn't become a topic of complaint, nor is it something that's going to be heavily praised upon. And also, since we are on the PS5 version at the moment, I'm curious why this VR option was kept in. Could we perhaps see this game be playable with the PSVR 2 sometime in the near future? I don't know. With no major differences between platforms, a completely restructured pricing model, and full crossplay support, the question remains, is Rennsport worth buying right now? If you're a console player who's been craving for a true sim racing experience, something closer to iRacing or Assetto Corsa, then Rennsport might just be the fresh start you've been waiting for. Its physics does feel authentic, the damage modeling is a standout feature, and the multiplayer structure shows real potential for a thriving competitive scene. But if you're someone looking for a complete package, a deep single player experience, a large car roster, as well as polished visuals, you might find Rennsport a little bare bones for its price tag. Right now, Rennsport feels less like a finished product and more like a solid foundation, a platform that could evolve into something special with time, updates, and community support. If the developers do follow through on their roadmap and listen to players' feedback, this could very well become a sim racer console players have been waiting for. But as it stands today, Rennsport is more of a promising start than a polished finish. But anyways, if you guys did find today's video helpful, please make sure to smash a thumbs up button as it really does help me out. And of course, if you guys would like to stay up to date with everything related, be sure to subscribe, and I hope to see you guys in the next video. Peace.